There are worse jobs.
I don't think there are.
Yeah, probably not.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, and we've got some stuff going on today because, as you guys could tell based on when we're starting the show, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with the NBA schedule, it's weird today. ESPN has the rights to all three games. They don't want to compete with themselves, so instead they're like, hey, we're just going to start airing our games at 5:30 Eastern time. So it is a really, really odd NBA. What's wrong with your banana?
Nothing's wrong with my banana. It's that Jordan Klein is trying to get me like eating banana as like the featured shot. It's like the only thing that he wants is my banana eating to be showcased, which again, now that I'm saying that out loud, I understand the way it sounds. I understand what he's trying to do. But we have a 2-hour show. What do you want me to do? Not eat lunch? I was just at the gym. I get home. I get yelled at. I think that's kind of typically how it's been going here. And then I get on this stream to be able to talk, to be able to hang out with my friend, Greg Ehrenberg, my kind of friend, Jordan Klein. And he wants to just zoom in on me eating bananas. Why? Why do you got to do that, Jordan?
Yeah, just shove that fucking thing down your throat and get ready to start the show, big guy. We got basketball to talk about. We got basketball to talk about. We got baseball to talk about. And as I was saying, we've got a very odd schedule today. Josh is out for the night. Eric and I are going to be doing both basketball and NBA together today. So what we are going to be doing, basketball show is going to go 4:30 to 5:30 right here on YouTube. Then what we're going to do is we're going to head on over to Playback. We're going to end the YouTube show, and we're going to be multitasking. We're going to watch the basketball games and sweat them. And while we're doing that, we're also going to start talking about the baseball slate. So I think that'll be a really fun way to kind of approach the day. I know it's different from how we normally do content, but I don't want people to get confused, wondering where the baseball show is. We're going to be over on Playback while we're also sweating the games. And I thought that was kind of the best way that we could get everything in at once. We could watch the basketball games. We could do the Playback show, talk about baseball. It's the first time we've tried it. I hope you guys like it because we could do more of these kinds of things in the future if you guys do. Just trying out some new stuff over there. As you're watching, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also we're sponsored here by DraftKings Pick 6. Eric, what's a good promo code people could use over at Pick 6? Because you've been loving the games over there.
Lindy 6, baby, LPL. Either one of those gets it done for you. I'm telling you, you get up to $200 back on your first pick set if it loses. So basically you're getting, if you deposit, $100, you play 100, you're getting 100 back if every single one of those entries loses. But some of the payout potential, if you get not even off the board, if you just skip some of the top plays that are going to be more popular and there's some failure that occurs, there are massive payouts waiting in the wings. I had a 5 of 6, a $20 5 of 6 that paid almost $500 last week. It was an absurd run out. If you had gone 6 of 6, I don't even know what that paid out. I was looking on Twitter, but it had to have been something ridiculous because it was like 1 or 2 of the 1,100, 1,200 entries that were in these $1 pick sets hit. And so you're basically making like if you're playing like the $1 winner take alls in DFS, that's basically what happens. And it's far more realistic to hit 6 of 6 in the pick streets than it is to win a DFS contest with 5,000 entries. So telling you right from the get-go, as good of a product as you'll have because it's peer-to-peer, it's not against the house. That is the key part.
Was Eric just glitching like crazy, or is it something weird on my end? All right. Yeah, that was really weird. So at least for me, when I was watching it through Zoom, your mouth was moving super fast and it wasn't matching your words, but it's fine now. It's fine. It wasn't as great as watching you eat a banana, but it was okay. Already, by the way, we've got lots of stuff going on here in the super chats. Thank you guys very much for the support. If you guys are watching us and you're a Stochastic sub in the Discord channel, you could add us anytime during the course of the show. We'll be answering the questions you guys have in Discord. And then also, of course, any of your guys' super chats. And right here, we've got Chris Williams has already gifted out 10 YouTube memberships, people. So Chris, as always, thank you very much for this. Oh no, 15. I didn't see there was another 5 that he left there. So Chris, thank you very much for the support. We always appreciate it. And then also he says, it's because we have the best duo back together. Can you believe he's that excited, Eric, to see myself back here on an NBA show with Jordan Klein?
No, I can't. Well, actually, no, I can because Rui Hachimura fucking sucked yesterday. So Josh Engleman, congratulations. You're the loser of the night, broski.
You're gonna hate on him for that, but
yeah,
the rumor is,
everybody
which
else
I don't know
because
I wasn't on the show. I haven't been here for a minute. The rumor is that you were just lock buttoning the never failing Wendell Carter Jr.
So that's not fair. First off, what you're saying is not fair to me. Second off, I made money on the slate yesterday with 100% Wendell Carter Jr. So it really mattered to be getting to the AD piece, to get to some different, like I pretty much had everything else right except for that idiot. And there was really nothing sub 4K that worked out for anybody. So it ended up being kind of an okay slate for me in the grand scheme of things, especially because I also smashed on pick six again. It's like 4 of 5 that I've hit for people on the free videos. If you check out Lindy's Locks on TikTok, if you check out the Odd Shopper or the Stochastic NBA X channel, because I always want to say Twitter, but X channel, getting those videos up for free for the people. They have been awfully profitable, and go Wolves.
And right off the bat here,
Banana Guzzler? What the fuck, Jordan? Jordan.
What's wrong with Jordan?
Why does it say Banana Guzzler?
Because that's what you were doing when we started the show.
Because we're doing a 2-hour show, Jordan. I agreed to a 2-hour show.
Yeah, we agreed. You had to.
I needed
listen, you're
bananas,
hungry, so you
okay?
guzzled some bananas. What's wrong with guzzling a banana?
Bro, you are so off the you are so bad as a person in the world right now.
I don't understand. You were eating you were eating a banana, correct?
Yes, I was eating a banana.
All right, you're a hungry boy. You had to eat a banana, and he's just bringing some attention to it. There's nothing. He's just reporting facts. It's not like he said you were sitting on one of your golf clubs. He said you were eating a banana. It's what you were doing.
Kind of sounds nice now that you say it.
You didn't have to pet it for 15 minutes before the show started. We were in Zoom before.
That's how I like to treat my bananas.
But you want to make sure that it's nice and firm when you eat it. I get it. We've all been there. It's understood. People understand in playback. People understand here in YouTube. It's been a minute since we did a show together. I miss this.
Yeah, me too. I miss this so much. I cannot believe how lucky I am to have a 2-hour show to make up all of that time with my friend Greg and my friend Jordan, who would never, ever expose me to humiliation on one of these shows ever.
I don't think he would either. I don't think he's that kind of person. And shout out to Chris for gifting us the memberships in YouTube. It is always appreciated, Chris. And also, I'm happy that you're happy that I'm back here on NBA Live Before Lock. We've got some questions that are starting to come in here. First from Deuce Trey. Deuce Trey is asking, what's cracking, fellas? FanDuel plays position by position. Yeah, so one thing that we should note here is there are some players who are on the injury report, which we haven't had too many slates in the playoffs where guys have been questionable, but the way the games are spread out and it's only a 3-game slate, I do think some of this could matter. We should note that Chris Middleton has been officially ruled in. He was questionable. I never expected him to sit, but I'm not exactly sure he's going to be 100% for today, but just want to note that he is now expected to play. Still questionable. Daniel Gafford is questionable. Grayson Allen is questionable. Kyle Anderson is questionable. So the answers we give now, I don't really think they're going to change in terms of the highest priorities, but there could be some other value plays that open up post-lock. One of the reasons to watch our show on playback is we're breaking down the MLB slate. We could also talk about any kind of NBA news that happens and things along those lines. But Eric, before we start to ask which players we like position by position, between Gafford being questionable, Grayson Allen being questionable, and Kyle Anderson being questionable, are you confident in any of these players sitting or playing, or do you just consider them 50-50s?
I consider Gafford to be the most questionable of the three. And because it's the second game, there will be an opportunity to get to your shares of Derek Lively if you'd want, your Maxi Kleba if you want. I don't think we really have to go crazy. I mean, what's going to happen is there's going to be a ton of ownership that's wrapped up in a lot of these studs from the Indy-Milwaukee game. Right now, looking at the top of the board, if you just group it by ownership, the first 3 are Indiana Pacers. The next 2 are Milwaukee Bucks. And yeah, we got Middleton that's in, but as you said, could be limited. Beverly and Portis are popular, Toppin, Turner, Siakam. So like, you're going to want to pre-bake in some lineups that have the news, but like for the most part, they're going to be still distant seconds to some of the value that we have early on. So I guess it's just kind of picking and choosing if there is something you feel more confident about. For me, I do think Kyle Anderson, based on the fact that he played last game. Yeah, he's questionable yet again with the right hip, but I think he plays and wouldn't have any reason to think he wouldn't after coming back. And then Grayson Allen, I know that ankle injury looked bad. If he ends up out, he's the most impactful of the 3, but I still think in a game where they're down 0-2, if there's any way that he's able to play, they'll have him out on the floor. Maybe he ends up limited. Maybe you bake in more Royce O'Neal, Eric Gordon, who would be the 2 main guys I think benefit in his absence. But I don't think I'm going to go crazy trying to tried to get to any one of those three. So it's not going to be me baking them in, but it's going to be their other pieces that I try to get maybe a little bit more exposure to. Still, though, I love that Milwaukee Indy game like most people do. Some of the value that exists there might be sketchy to some, but do you have the lean on any of this? Because again, I think Gafford's the most likely to sit at the 3.
So also people who are saying that I am echoing it if I talk when I'm echoing, I think it would be on Eric's side. Is it fixed now? Is it when I talk or is it when Eric talks? Because I'm trying to figure out who's. It's when Eric talks.
Bad
All right,
echo.
I can do something about that. If it's when Eric talks.
How about that? You done whining? How about this?
No, I'm just trying to fix a problem here.
Dream N, when Zippy talks. Yeah, Zippy long stockings.
There we
got it. Done.
How about now? Guys? Eric, try talking.
Greg. Hello. Banana.
Fixed? All right, cool. All right, so it should be better now.
Spider White to banana.
So I agree with you. I think Gafford is live to miss the game, as well as Kyle Anderson. I feel pretty good about Grayson Allen playing. In the event that Grayson Allen didn't play, Eric Gordon would have to step into more minutes. He'd become a better value option. But I think Grayson Allen's going to play. Gafford and Kyle Anderson, those ones are more questionable to me. We'll see what ends up happening with their situations later. But as for Deuce Trey's question, he wants to know who our favorite FanDuel options are position by position. Do you have lineups built out for both sites, Eric, or just DraftKings?
Yeah, I built up my stuff. Like, I had Middleton in this morning, ran some stuff. I don't think anything's changed for me.
All right, so Deuce Trey's question, favorite FanDuel plays by position. Starting at point guard for me, that is going to be relative to ownership. I can't believe Dame is not more popular on FanDuel. So Dame only projected for about 15% ownership on FanDuel. That's going to be my favorite point guard option. How about yourself? FanDuel point guard.
I'm not playing on FanDuel, so I want to just throw that out there for the people. But Patrick Beverley is the top guy, 5,400, pretty hard to ignore.
Shooting guard for me, that is going to be Devin Booker.
That is Grayson Allen for me on FanDuel.
Small forward, that is going to be Aaron Nesmith, who unfortunately just shows up in a lot of lineups on FanDuel throughout the postseason.
And DraftKings. So there's that too. I like him on DraftKings where he's a little bit lower owned, but 5,100 on DK works. FanDuel 5,700 on FanDuel. He's my highest owned player.
And then at power forward, that is going to be Bobby Portis for me.
Pascal Siakam for me.
And then over at center, that would also be Bobby Portis, but already have used him. So
Bobby Portis for me there.
Yusuf Nurkic.
Yep, Portis for me.
All right. So that is going to do it for the FanDuel side of things there. Deuce Trey, thank you very much for the super chat. We do appreciate it. Ryan Renabaum wants to know who is the white of the night. He wants to know about an exotic play. Jordan, play the animation. It's been a minute since I've gotten to see this. It doesn't get played on the baseball show because everybody's exotic on those. Play it. Oh my God, have I missed this?
Yeah, the 0-3 Austin Reeves. That's great.
Kevin Herter with all the shoulders work.
Yep.
Tyler Hero from the 85% from 3 shooting Miami Heat. Exotic play of the night. Eric, believe it or not, even in the playoffs, we do have some exotics to go to. Who's your favorite overall? Which is the white of the night? Which exotic player is going to help your lineups today?
So there's a couple of them that exist. I think the main one that I want to highlight, star circle for the people, he exists later on in the evening. And sure, FanDuel, I just brought him up there. And then John P just decides to be a dipshit in the chat, and it is what it is. But if nobody's going to roster him, I do think he ends up playing, and there's a lot of easy ways to be able to maneuver off of it. But Grayson Allen, one bad ankle. Yeah, I saw him turn his ankle. I was very aware. But this is a guy that I still think will be walking into 30-plus minutes and could be very, very low-owned when we think about all the value that exists on this first game, all the pieces of this first game that people want to get to. And then later on, as the evening goes on, you know, if Grayson Allen ends up sitting, there's going to be some type of value that I'm going to be able to maneuver in my lineups out of it. So assuming that he plays, Grayson Allen, I think, is somebody that you want to be getting to. So I think FanDuel, he's definitely a priority. On DK, a little bit more of a luxury item, but they need his shooting. They need him to be somewhat competent because right now, if left to their own devices, they can't do a damn thing in iso ball with Durant, with Booker. Beal's been terrible as well. So Grayson Allen, exotic play of the night.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with somebody who I've been overweight to quite a bit in the playoffs. That is Rudy Gobert. I know he's not technically white, but he is from France. That has to count for something. So Rudy Gobert, who is $7,200 over on DraftKings. I know there's been this narrative for a while that Rudy Gobert is somebody who gets played off the court in the playoffs. He can't play in the postseason. That's certainly not been the case so far. 2 games in the series, he's played 39 and 37 minutes. And I can't believe he's not more expensive. Rudy Gobert is much too cheap for me. He hasn't been crazy popular in the postseason either. I still think there's a bias where people don't want to play Rudy Gobert. So give me Gobert as my exotic play of the night. Is Gobert somebody who's landing in your lineups, Eric?
How is he an exotic play?
He's from France.
Are you okay? Like, this is your bit. You know that, right?
Yeah. He's from France. That counts for me.
Huh?
Well, I don't. What's wrong with Rudy Gobert?
Okay, Greg.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what your issue is with Rudy Gobert, but he's my choice there.
Gonna be like that, huh?
The other issue I have too, there are no white guys that I'm getting significant amount of exposure to, and I don't just want to tell people to play somebody who I'm not rostering.
I have
so Rudy Gobert
22%
is the
Grayson
answer
Allen
there because I just have to.
Well, I'm just looking at the guys that I have that fall into the category 18% Maxi Kleber. I think I might want to increase that a little bit, but he's got some serious positive leverage in the boom bust tool too.
Yeah,
Might
if
change
we
it to Maxi
see a
Kleber.
scenario where Gafford doesn't play, Kleber is going to be underowned and be a pretty good tournament option. I do
think I'm going to
that.
make it. I'm switching. I've never done that before. Maxi Kleber. Maxi Kleber. I'm going to give him a boost and get over. Because again, Grayson Allen is like 8%. And I just pre-built out like just over 20% of him. But I think I'd rather get to Maxi Kleber as my point of leverage there. I mean, about a 14% better chance of being optimal. Different positions, obviously, but different price points too. 3,500 Maxi Kleber. Let's boost it.
Let's see what else we have as far as questions go here, because I think there was one other one. Yes, it was over at 14. He said, thanks. Won his bets last night. I'm not aware. What were the bets from yesterday that you won, Eric?
I won like everything. Kansas City money line, Milwaukee money line was amazing. Denver money line in basketball, which was the absolute fishiest line that I've ever seen in my entire life. Because when a team's beat another team 11 in a row, you just have to have the other team favored at home. That made no sense to me.
Do you have any bets that you're liking for today? Because that was the follow-up here from over at 14. While he did say, thanks for the bets that you helped him win last night, he wants to know what are the bets for today. I have to check to see if the odds have moved on. There was one bet I liked this morning quite a bit. It was Obi Toppin under 4.5 rebounds, but I don't know if that still exists or not.
Yeah, let me find if that is useful for you while we're talking about it. One guy that I thought was pretty interesting, because I expect the usage to potentially come up, Chris Middleton. I don't think he's going to be like quote unquote limited, but there's at least like a couple of minutes you should probably trim off of what I've had him around the last few 38, 39 minutes. Took him down to 35.5 for today. Patrick Beverley, 6.5 points was his line last night. I think that has stayed about the same. I also saw that the number, I knew it was going to happen. Money coming in on Phoenix. Give me Minnesota at 5. Give me the 5 points there. Again, I'm far more into the prop streets, but lately it's been pretty darn fun to be taking some of these numbers and have lines kind of move the way that you're predicting. Like, I knew money was going to somehow come in on Phoenix. They didn't play well in Minnesota, no doubt about it, going back home here. But you give me 5 with this iteration of the Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns getting healthier. Hasn't even played outside of 30 minutes yet in this series because Nickeil Alexander-Walker's played so well. But I'll take 5 and just move on with my life.
Yep, I think that is pretty reasonable. I'm just checking to see if that Obi Toppin line is still up. Because like I said, if it is, I like Obi Toppin under 4.5 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's a terrible DFS punt option, Obi Toppin, because he is so cheap. And, like how many options there to reasonably go to on the cheap end today. But at the same time as well, his rebound prop is set at 4.5. He played 21 minutes last game, but it was mostly because of garbage time, where the game wasn't all that close. In a more competitive game one, he played 13.5 minutes. And if we're only going to get 13.5 minutes out of Obi Toppin, the most likely scenario to me is that he lands under 4.5 rebounds. So let's see. Is that line still up? I'm searching on Odd Chopper right now. And Obi Toppin. Yep, it's still there. It's got a little bit more juice than what I bet it this morning, but you could still get the 4.5 line on Obi Toppin. That is going to be my preferred bet here over at 14. Thank you very much for the question. And now we got 2 super chats about tiers for today. One is from Ace of Spade. He wants to know our favorite options for DK tiers. And then Reds de Goat says, who are our top 2 options for DK tiers? And then he also says, shout out Ace of Spade. So let's go and look at tiers, Eric, and we can go back and forth with our favorite options to get to in each tier. And I know that he asked for 2 in each tier, but I think there are some tiers where we just say like there's one player we really like above all the others, where you can maybe narrow it down to one player a little bit more than other tiers.
One
and
player
starting in
them
tier
all,
one, this is specifically the reason why I only want to name one guy. We've got Luka in tier 1, and the other guys are Edwards and Dame. So I'm just going to say play Luka in tier 1.
They need to stop doing that. They've been doing that a lot. It has been not enjoyable to see a tier. They just need to remove the Jokic and the Doncic players from the tier 1, and life is much better. But it is Luka by a country mile.
Yeah, so that's why I only wanted to give you the 1 in tier 1, because there is nobody else you should be playing in that tier. Tier 2, Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yep, Pascal Siakam. And then, Tyrese Halliburton's going to be low owned in that tier, which is wild, considering the guy was a walking 50 burger for a month, basically, the first month of the season, 2 months of the season. And then things have gotten weird since he got back from injury. And we all know the story post All-Star break. It hasn't been good, but Pascal Siakam usage is like undeniably ridiculous so far.
Tier 3, Devin Booker and Kawhi Leonard.
It is, it's Devin Booker by a lot.
Yeah, and then as a secondary one, I'm going to go with Kawhi here. I think there's a wide range of outcomes with Kawhi's minutes that warrants a discussion about what we want to do with him in classic contests as well. Like, if you guys are playing cash games in the playoffs, that's not a scenario I would recommend you play Kawhi Leonard. I think he's an interesting tournament option today. First game that he played of this series, keep in mind he missed game 1. Game 2, he played 35 minutes. He hadn't played, though, in about a month. If we see a totally unrestricted Kawhi Leonard who plays 38 to 40 minutes, I don't think that's the most likely scenario, but I think it's on the table. I think Kawhi is a good contrarian tournament option to get to today.
I am 100% behind it. He was going to be my nuke of the night, but I guess now we'll find something else. He's 7,800. That's the other thing. Yeah. Like, that's the main thing that sticks out to me. This is not a price point that you get Kawhi Leonard at ever.
Yeah. If you do, it's like early in the season when he's playing 30 minutes or something like that, or he's coming off an injury and he's restricted, which to an extent is what's happening. He's coming back from injury, but he played 35 minutes the first game. You have to think at a minimum, he's playing those 35 minutes, barring a blowout or some kind of weird foul situation. So if you guys are playing tournaments today, classic contests, I think you should be taking a look at Kawhi Leonard as a contrarian GPP option. Tier 4 is a really tough one. There's a lot of different guys that I think you could potentially go to here. Where like, how many minutes does Karl-Anthony Towns play? Kind of in the same vein that we just talked about with Kawhi Leonard, but I'm going to go Bobby Portis and Rudy Gobert.
Here, tier 4, I have it as Miles Turner.
Tier 5, that is going to be Zubats and Brook Lopez for me.
Brook Lopez ever so slightly over Zubats.
And then finally, tier 6, Patrick Beverley and Jaden McDaniels, who went just absolutely crazy last game.
It's Patrick Beverley by a lot for me. Jaden McDaniels would be second, but a distant second.
Now let me check in Discord to see if we had any questions that came in through there, which we don't at the moment. I do want to let you guys know, though, there's a promo going on right now. It's for baseball. It's not for basketball, but it's something I think a lot of you guys would be interested in. If you sign up for our MLB lineup generator, you get access for just $5. $5. Promo code double. There's a link for it below in the description box. It already has that promo code loaded in. But if you wanted to go to the site, you want to make sure you type in that promo code double in all capital letters, because it gets you the MLB lineup generator, just $5. So you could build lineups for you on that lineup generator, or another potential option, you could alter some of those lineups, make some adjustments as you see fit. And of course, any package you sign up for here does get you access to our Discord channel as well, where you could add us and ask questions anytime you want over the course of the day. So go check out the MLB lineup generator for just $5. Or if you're somebody who's playing NBA and you haven't quite dipped your toes in the water of baseball as basketball season winds down, go take advantage of the lineup generator offer here. Sign up $5 using that promo code double. All right, Eric. So no other questions. Let's start talking about the slate more like as a whole. And I think we could also kind of look at it by position and start talking about some of the players that we're liking as core options, as well as potential contrarian options. And starting here at point guard, I am getting to, once again, a good amount of Patrick Beverley. I find Beverley very difficult to get away from today. He remains relatively cheap on DraftKings at $4,700. We also talked about liking him over on FanDuel. But the biggest thing about this time of year, it is hard to find cheap guys that we could expect to play big minutes. And we can expect that from Patrick Beverley. He's not the best fantasy producer in the world, but we don't need the same ceiling in the postseason that we need in the regular season for some of these cheap guys. I'm finding it hard to get away from Patrick Beverley. Is he somebody you're landing on as well?
Yeah, I have 80% of him. He's my highest home player at the moment. I don't know how you avoid him at 4,700. The other part of this is 37 and 34 minutes for him. Last night on my betting show, basically was working through some of his rates and his usage. He's 10 shot attempts in 2 games, 4 3-point attempts in 2 games. There's that's his floor, I think, on what his usage could be in some of these spots. Again, I thought if you had Chris Middleton end up out, it would be even a little bit more appealing. Now, with Middleton in, obviously he's going to affect everybody's rates a little bit here, especially some of the ancillary pieces not named Damian Lillard. But a 14.3% usage amongst both teams here, right around 13% over the last month. I'm thinking that just the minutes are pretty predictable here. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but you just kind of, by being out on the floor, are going to run into more than 5 shot attempts in a game sooner rather than later. And he's been filling up the box score in other ways. 8 assists, 7 boards there in game 1. Then he had the 2 blocks and a steal in game 2. Again, you kind of just find production as a Patrick Beverley who's out there to be a nuisance, out there to basically sit in the corner and direct traffic. Patrick Beverley is going to take more than 5 shot attempts in a game in this series. And if that ends up being here, you're just going to probably need him at 4,700 because there's nobody else who's going to touch his kind of court time under 5K today. Is
there a contrarian guard that you like getting to on the slate? And I'm not going to say you have to answer somebody. If the answer is just that you prefer the chalkier options, that's totally acceptable. But is there a guard? It could be somebody who's point guard or shooting guard eligible. Do you like it lower ownership? And since it's a 3-game slate, we'll consider anybody sub 20%.
Yeah, Pat Connaughton. He's 3,500, shooting guard, small forward. And we've seen Malik Beasley. I was pretty high on Malik Beasley for game 2, thinking that, hey, maybe it's a game script where they need his shooting. Maybe there's no, Doc Rivers probably just hates this guy, or a guy, Glenn Rivers. He played 29 minutes in that game 1, but did have like garbage time, I suppose it would be. If it's a meaningful game, like, for them trying to come from behind, he played a grand total of 10 minutes. And if there's any limitations whatsoever to Chris Middleton, I think the main beneficiary ends up being Pat Connaughton at 3,500. It's a price point that is very cheap. It's a price point with shooting guard, small forward being something that you're kind of able to utilize and move around and fits easily into lineups. But I think Pat Connaughton, somebody with a lot of positive leverage in the boom bust tool. And again, I don't think we see Middleton. I trimmed 3 minutes off of Middleton from last game to this game. No, 2.5 basically. And I think Pat Connaughton's the guy up against Indy here, where in pretty much any game script, there's ways for him to be out on this floor. I think a floor of like 18, 20 minutes, no matter what. I like getting to Pat Connaughton as a contrarian option today.
Damian Lillard is not popular on FanDuel or DraftKings. And I know that Dame time is converted from crunch time to all of a sudden being Dame time is just the first like 11 minutes of the game. But Damian Lillard has put up a lot of usage in the first couple of games of the series, and he's had good, not great fantasy performances. Still, though, this is a guy who has to carry a massive load for this Milwaukee team when there is no Giannis out there for him. It's only a 3-game slate. This applies to both DraftKings and FanDuel. I can't believe that Dame is not more popular, especially when you consider that this game should be way higher scoring than the other 2 games on the slate. The total in this game, 223.5. The total in the Clippers-Dallas game, 213.5. The total in the Minnesota-Phoenix game, 208. So this should be the game that's the highest scoring. Damian Lillard figures to play a big part of it. The series is knotted at 1 apiece. So I do think we're looking at 40-plus minutes from Lillard in a competitive game. And you don't have to pay as much for Dame as you do for some of the other stars on the slate. Like Luka at 11,700 on DraftKings is very, very popular. And I get why. He's Luka, but he is kind of hard to pay up for considering the lack of value on the slate. I really like Dame as a pivot off of Luka for half the ownership and quite a bit of a discount in price. Are you finding yourself getting to Dame as a pay up option?
Yes, but not like crazy high as what you are there. I have 22%. Maybe I give him a little bit of a boost. I guess there's another guard that's kind of pulling some of the ownership just based on where we have him listed. Sub 10% James Harden. He's 8K. He's been the best offensive player for the Clippers in the first 2 games of the series. I think if there's, I mean, Kawhi just struggled. He didn't look entirely correct, and PJ Washington played really good defense on him last time around. I think Kawhi, as the series goes along, will continue to improve and strip away from some of Paul George and Mr. Paul and James Harden. It already happened to a certain extent, but James Harden at 8K has played 39 and 42 minutes. He has been directing traffic. He's had 8 assists in both of these outings, 8.5 that he's averaging on the season in Dallas. I understand that this lineup, their starting lineup, has had the top defensive rating in the NBA over the last month and a half. They played almost nobody during that stretch. I do think that while this total is very, very low, it opened at 221 in game 1. It opened at like 210.5 yesterday. It's now been bet up to around 213.5, me included in that scenario. But I think this game has the potential of shooting out a little bit more than what Minnesota Phoenix does, where I just think that gets played lethargically no matter what because of Minnesota, how good they are defensively. But I feel pretty good about taking shots on James Harden and Paul George as Kawhi Leonard starts to acclimate himself. Because once Kawhi is playing 42 minutes at the end of this series, it's going to be really hard to invest in those guys.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. We did get a question in the chat. Termite asked, is Gafford out today? He's questionable. So the way that Eric had talked about it before was, I don't want to misquote you, but I'm fairly sure you'd said at the top that you thought the most likely scenario is that Gafford was going to be out. Not that you said like you're guaranteeing he's going to be out, but like if you were leaning one way or the other, your guess was that you thought he was a little more likely to sit than play, correct?
So I think it's like 50-50, but I think amongst the 3 injuries that we have, that being Daniel Gafford, Grayson Allen, and Kyle Anderson, the most likely to miss, I believe, is Daniel Gafford.
Yeah, we got, once again, 3 players are questionable on the injury report for today. And I agree with Eric. I think if one of these 3 players sits, I think it's most likely to be Gafford. Gafford's questionable. Grayson Allen's questionable. Kyle Anderson's questionable. If I'm going to rank these players in order of most likely to sit to least likely, Gafford most likely to sit. Kyle Anderson second most likely to sit for me. Grayson Allen, I'm pretty confident Grayson Allen plays. So that's the order I'm going in. Those are the 3 players who are questionable that we're waiting on news for. So we'll see. We'll have more on the post-lock show about what ends up happening with players who are in or players who are out. And we got some questions that are coming to us from Discord. First from Stokes. Stokes says he's getting to a lot of Phoenix tonight. He wants to know what our thoughts on that are, and then also how much of Luka are we getting to. So first off, he says he's getting to a lot of Phoenix tonight. Eric, I remember you said that you were getting to Grayson Allen was somebody who you liked, is not all that popular of an option. Who else are you getting to from Phoenix? We got Stokes saying he's getting to a lot of the Suns guys.
How? I'm not getting to a lot of the Suns guys. What I'm doing is I'm making calculated stands where Grayson Allen has the potential to be like 5% owned. We've seen routinely throughout these playoffs, if somebody has a Q tag next to their name, there's some artificial downgrade to their ownership. We also know how much ownership is coming in on Indy and Milwaukee. And I'm going to be going to the Twins Angels game tonight. So I'm playing 20 lineups tonight. I've got, just the ability to late swap while I'm here before that first game, before we take off to Anaheim. But I am very sure that Grayson Allen will not be even close to like 9-10% owned, under any circumstances. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to calculate up the ownership from Indy Milwaukee. It'll give me a pretty good idea of what goes on for the rest of the slate. It should be very easy to calculate out where certain guys are going to land. And again, just routinely, Grayson Allen, he's played bad, but how many times have we seen during the regular season where he is the huge X factor for this team, both offensively and defensively? He's somebody who can guard multiple positions, is obviously going back to his Duke days. It's not like he was some offensive juggernaut, but he has shot the ball unbelievably well this entire season. And in order to get some of the defensive attention away, where you have to just kind of play honest on a Grayson Allen or something of that nature, like he's going to have open shots multiple times throughout this series. Like game 2 is a little bit wonky. He gets dinged up. They don't really get to utilize him the same way, but I think Grayson Allen, we've seen 50 burgers, 55 burgers from Grayson Allen in some of these spots. Most of those have been at home. And I'm not saying that it's a likely thing to happen, but I know I'm getting really, really low ownership to take a shot on him. If you're going to somebody else from Phoenix, let me actually look at this, because I know Beal's somebody that at his price point, 6,400, from a DFS perspective is kind of hard to ignore. I've got 30% of him at the moment. He's my next most popular guy, Yusuf Nurkic. I've got it right around that number too, but I kind of like Royce O'Neal. I think if there's going to be limitations to Grayson Allen and of any sort too, Royce O'Neal is your main beneficiary. He's kind of played some of those minutes where they need more size in the lineup. They go to McDaniels, Cat, Naz Reid in that second unit. Royce O'Neal has been out on the floor to try to spread things out too. And I think those minutes could end up being 28, 30 if Grayson Allen's not right.
I have a pretty good amount of exposure to the Suns. Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are each in about half my lineups.
Whoa.
And then I have Nurkic and Durant each in about a quarter of my lineups. So I do think the Suns are a pretty good team to be getting to, per your question there, Stokes. So it's a priority team for me to be getting to on this slate for sure. And a big part of this too, it's the same thing I'd said I was doing with Josh last night. I had told him is I'm expecting when teams are down 2-0 in series, it's one of the reasons I told Josh I think it was 65% of Paulo Banchero last night. And he didn't end up playing the minutes I was expecting because they won in a blowout. But players' roles change when the team goes down 2-0. Stars get more extended minutes. And then also we start to see things like usage rates could be higher. Paulo Banchero, if you watch that game, he took like 14 shots in the first quarter. It was the most absurd thing ever. But those are the kinds of things that happen when a team goes down 2-0. They go, hey, we're going to feed Kevin Durant. We're going to feed Devin Booker. We're going to play these guys 42 to 44 minutes. So I think there's big minutes in store for the Suns guys. I do want to be prioritizing them in tournaments there, Stokes. And then he also wanted to know how much of Luka are we getting to? Yeah, I'm not getting to very much of Luka. He's only in a few lineups for me. I'm well underway to the field. I just find his price tag hard to get to.
Yeah, he's very hard to get to today. Again, if you're jamming Obi Toppin, if you're jamming Maxi Kleber and that works out for you, awesome. You're probably going to get more Luka, but I'm not going to play 56% Obi Toppin today, it would appear. I'm going to rerun my stuff here in The Sims one or two more times, taking in some of the stuff we talked about, just like I do with Josh, but playing a limited amount of lineups, I doubt I'm going to play any Luka.
And we've got a couple more questions to answer from Discord. Then we'll do the nuke of the night. So Jordan, get that animation queued up there for when we do the nuke of the night. I haven't seen Eric's penis get blown off in quite a bit. I'm looking forward to that. And then 18 minutes from now, we're going to be a lock. This hour is going very, very quickly. Eric and I are going to jump into playback. We're going to start watching the basketball game. And then also we're going to be doing MLB live before lock and talking about the baseball slate while we watch the basketball game. So I'll keep that in mind, everybody. JEW says, what do we think about swapping Maxi for Obi Toppin in a chalky lineup? I think that's a pretty reasonable pivot to make.
Who and who? Sorry.
To make a lineup less chalky, going to Maxi Kleber as opposed to Obi Toppin in that lineup.
100%. And you're going to be able to react to whatever happens with Obi Toppin. Running the Sims unencumbered, you're going to get to a lot of Obi Toppin, but my first run, my top 20 lineups, Maxi Kleber's in 40% of them. And I just reran my stuff. So kind of throwing it all together and finishing it up here now, and I'll be able to concrete say what I have. But I definitely find myself wanting to ROI decrease Mr. Obi Toppin, who is the third most popular player. Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, those were always going to be like two of my main dudes, so I'm fine with it.
Kate Powers in the YouTube chat says every time he checks out playback, the game is never on. So there's always a game on, but it's a couple of things going on. First is you have to be logged into NBA League Pass if we're watching just like a regular NBA game, or you have to have a VIP. We only have a certain number of VIPs to hand out, and we will gamify. We do stuff like, hey, who do you guys think is going to score the next basket when we have extra VIPs to hand out? But we only have a limited number of VIPs, but that allows people to watch like the ESPN, TNT type games, even in playback, because we can't just have everybody watching the national TV games, just the way that the NBA licensing deal works. But the games are always on over there. And then Steve Sand asked, is MLB Live Before Lock only on playback, or is it also on YouTube? It'll only be on playback today. Trying something different. We'll see how it goes. And then this final question from Monkey Prick. And then Jordan, we will be doing the nuke of the night. So get that animation queued up. But first, Monkey Prick wants to know, am I lowering the projection on Bobby Portis at all? I Bobby Portis in about half of my lineups, and I'm totally fine with that.
I have him in 60%. I'm going to be right around 50 as well when it's all said and done.
All right, let's do it then. Time for the nuke of the night. Jordan, play the animation. Oh my God.
Yep.
I can't believe I have an erection to watch your penis get blown off.
Dear God.
Fuck yeah. Bang, there it is. Nuke of the night, Eric. I have not done one of these with you in a meaningful amount of time now because I've been doing the baseball shows. Eric, who's the nuke of the night today?
Kind of gave a little bit of tipping my handle, if you will, earlier in the show, and I don't really care because it just makes all the sense in all the land. We have this Dallas LAC game. It is a pivotal game 3 here, 1-1, both sides of it. But 35 minutes is pretty decent, hefty amount there for Kawhi Leonard. And he is the alpha when everybody's healthy. The 1.22 DraftKings points per minute player. We are going to see Paul George 1.15 on the season. We're going to see right around that James Harden 1.15 on the season. But Kawhi is still the alpha. And the pricing doesn't dictate that here at the moment. We've got James Harden at 8K, Paul George at 7,900, and Kawhi Leonard with a Q tag next to his name on DraftKings. And I just want to throw this in yet again. I know that we're using not just Optimizer. We are using the Sims over here at Stochastic. We are using advanced tools to help us make lineups to be profitable. There are a lot of people come playoff time that join the party and play DFS, and they are reacting to Q tags next to names. It makes them feel uncomfortable in a way that we haven't had these kind of bumps for a while, because it's usually just us, the people doing the shows, the people watching the shows, who are playing a majority of the DFS come this time, or come the end of the NBA regular season. But friends, Kawhi Leonard is not going to be popular today. And at 1.22 DraftKings points per minute, you put him into 37, 38 minutes here in this spot, and I find him to be the best tournament play in this 7K plus range. I just don't see any way that we're going to get to the kind of ownership that he is projected for here at the moment, which makes me very comfortable in making Kawhi Leonard at 7,800, a price point I can't remember seeing on him in quite some time. 11.6% owned, your nuke of the night.
Hey, I like Kawhi. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction, though, with Devin Booker. Devin Booker is live to play 48 minutes today. Not saying I'm projecting that to happen, but it's within the realm of possibility. You got the Suns down 2-0. The series is shifting back to Phoenix in a matchup here against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is not a situation the Suns want to be going down 3-0. So they're going to be doing everything in their power to get this series 2-1 and make it a little bit closer. And one of the most reasonable ways to do it, you play Kevin Durant more minutes, you play Devin Booker more minutes, and let them take more shots. So Devin Booker, he is projected for, some ownership today. I'm not going to tell you he's crazy contrarian, but 29%. I'm about double the field on Devin Booker. I think he should be quite a bit more popular. And that's one of the reasons, too, that I'm not at the ownership that Luka has, that Luka's picking up from the field, is because I'm getting to Devin Booker. I'm getting to Kevin Durant. I'm getting to Damian Lillard as slightly cheaper pay-up options. So Devin Booker is my favorite overall pay-up option on the slate, and he's going to be my nuke of the night. Some more questions that are coming in. We got a couple of super chats as well as some questions in Discord. So right here, Zhaolin Verse wants to know, for a FanDuel GPP ownership update, wants to know what the ownership is for FanDuel. So let me refresh on my screen to make sure that I'm looking at the most. Oh, good timing. There's a ownership update from 1 minute ago.
Wow.
1 minute ago, we got an
How
ownership
good do you
update.
run?
These are your
Nobody
most
runs
popular
better.
players over on FanDuel. Aaron Neesmith is 48% owned. Patrick Beverley, 42%. Chris Middleton, 41%. Derek Jones Jr. up to 37% over on FanDuel. Pascal Siakam at 36%. Halliburton's 36%. Then we got Portis at 34%. Grayson Allen actually up to 33%. And then Devin Booker, 31%. Luka at 30%. Those are all your players that are 30% or more popular over on FanDuel. And then Slink the Second. Slink the Second is asking us a 2v2 question. Eric, do you prefer Kawhi Leonard and Derek Jones Jr. or James Harden and Maxi Kleber?
We have the player compare tool. We could throw it in there too. I prefer Derek Jones Jr. I haven't thought about too much. He's pretty popular at 3,600 at the moment. Maxi is not nearly as popular and higher optimal and lower ownership. So I'm inclined to say the second part of that.
It is going to be James Harden and Maxi Kleber for me. And this is already the route I prefer. But then also if you get Daniel Gafford out, I mean, Gafford being out would also help Derek Jones Jr. out a little bit, but it would benefit Kleber even more. So James Harden, Maxi Kleber, that's going to be my preferred option to go to there. Then Olrat 14 says, I've heard Toppin, I've heard Kleber, I've heard O'Neal. Why not Derek Jones Jr., Eric?
It's not why not. He's fine. It's just that the boom percentage, again, we're thinking about floor and ceiling a little bit differently this time of year. Like Derek Jones Jr. gives you access to other stuff. You're basically comparing him to other players in the range. He's projected for a little bit more here than some of the other goobers, but like Maxi Kleber has lower ownership, $100 less, projected ever so slightly more. And if you do get Mr. Daniel Gafford out, you're going to see 30-ish minutes here. Again, with Kawhi out there, you get away from some of those lineups that might necessitate having a center. And you can go extreme small ball if you're the Clippers. That's something that they've done forever. You could see Russell Westbrook jump into not a closing lineup per se, but like into more minutes. Norman Powell, they've closed small in a lot of these spots. And Maxi Kleber, that's who they want to have out on the floor a majority of the time. That's something Josh and I have talked about quite a bit because just defensively for the scheme of this series, he makes sense. Don't expect for Derek Jones Jr. to put up some of the points that he had early on there. He's not out there for offensive purposes. He's out there purely defensively. But one thing Maxi Kleber can do when healthy is knock down shots, finish at the rim. 90th percentile at the rim, only a 35% three-point shooter so far this season, but he's had spurts in his NBA career around 41%. Should be kind of left alone there. So 6'11 Maxi Kleber, probably the guy they prefer to have out there for more minutes. That's just kind of what's happened in the first two games.
Yeah, so the main reason why I have 10% of Derek Jones Jr. and not more of him is he's a little bit too popular for me. Project for 26% ownership.
Yeah,
I don't think he's unplayable. I have 10% of him, but just less than the field has at 26%. Just a little bit too much ownership going to him for my liking. Riley Cooper 14 wants to know any love for Kyle Anderson today. That is a negative for me.
0%.
Let me see. Do I have any of Kyle Anderson?
Nope.
I do not. He's questionable. He might not play. Even if he does, he's not playing a very significant role, and he's not the greatest points per minute fantasy producer. Earlier in the year, when we were playing Kyle Anderson, at times players were out. He was starting. He was expected to play like 36 to 38 minutes. It's hard to expect more than minutes in like the mid to high teens out of Kyle Anderson, which makes him not as appealing to me. Jorge Giacomi left us a super chat. He says, thoughts on a chalky Obi Toppin, any pivots? So I know Eric's favorite pivot, and it's the same one for me, Maxi Kleber.
Yep, 45% of lineups.
Yeah, I think Maxi Kleber is a good pivot to be getting there, Jorge. And also, I'm still getting myself lineups with Obi Toppin. I assume you are as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I don't think Obi Toppin is a poor option by any means. He's a pretty good fantasy producer. He's probably not going to play an exorbitant amount, but just considering how few options there are on the low end, it brings him into play. That's why the field's getting there. So he's certainly worth rostering.
Yeah, it's worth at least talking about why Obi Toppin is there. 21 minutes last time out. It's not like he's playing gobs of minutes and going crazy. He closed the game because it was a blowout there. They've played him alongside some of the main guys, Nemhard, Halliburton, Turner, Neesmith there, towards the end of his first rotation there, did simultaneously play on the floor. He's basically playing when Pascal Siakam wasn't out there in his first rotation, and then they played next to each other for the beginning of the fourth quarter, but that's not going to be the norm, I don't think. They brought Ben Shepherd in a little bit more that game too. So somebody that we didn't talk about, who I at least thought about for a little bit there. He's 3,200, just a completely different roster construction, but like there's ways that Obi Toppin, again, Ben Shepherd, not as good of a fantasy producer. We're looking at Obi Toppin as somebody who in 22 minutes can be a must-have, but I do like kind of getting away from 60% of him. I'm far more comfortable playing in the 30-ish% or 15-ish% realm if you want to take like an aggressive short.
Going into Discord, we've got some questions that are coming in here before lock. One here is from OBG. OBG is asking us, pivot options or lineup strategies to get away from Bobby Portis. First off, I don't think you want to get away from Bobby Portis. I think he's somebody you want to be playing today. My favorite option who would be priced similarly to Bobby Portis. I don't want to keep stealing Eric's information here, but you could play Kawhi Leonard for $900 more. I think that's your best pivot off of Bobby Portis.
That is correct.
Let me see who else is around this price point. If you think that Karl-Anthony Towns has a ceiling to play extended minutes, Karl-Anthony Towns is only $200 more than Bobby Portis. That's also a route that you could potentially go down, but I prefer Kawhi Leonard there. But Karl-Anthony Towns or Kawhi Leonard, I think those are both reasonable pivots off of Bobby Portis. Four-prong digger wants to know Patrick Beverley or Neesmith as the last man in on DK.
They're both pretty good plays. They're both pretty popular plays. I prefer Patrick Beverley.
So, I mean, if you have the requisite salary, Neesmith's $400 more expensive. I get to more lineups with Beverley, but it has more to do with what his price point is. If the salary isn't a concern, I'm going to tell you go to Aaron Neesmith instead for that $400 extra. And then Stokes is asking, is Eric getting to the hometown guy, Anthony Edwards? You getting to your hometown guy?
Sure fucking am.
Is he a high priority play for you?
No, I have 18% of him. And that's out of top 150. I'm going to trim it down to my top 20. I'd be surprised if I got more than like 10, 15% of him, but I will tell you one thing. I will be cheering my dick off for him, just like the Nuke of the night.
Let's see. What do I have here of him? So the problem I have with Ant, it's not an Ant problem. It's more so there are a lot of guys that are priced comparably that I like. I like Edwards. I just like guys like Devin Booker and Damian Lillard more. That's it.
Understandable.
Nothing to do with him himself. And then in particular, the Suns guys, not to just keep bringing up the same talking point, but if you ask me who is a higher minute ceiling today, Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker, I'm going to tell you it's Devin Booker because this game is much more important for the Phoenix Suns to win than it is for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not that the Timberwolves don't care if they win or not, but it's more of a desperation sort of situation for the Suns, where if this game is competitive or if they get down early or anything like that, Devin Booker might have to play the entire game. I don't think that's even on the table for Anthony Edwards. It is for Devin Booker, though. So that's something that kind of inhibits me wanting to get there. Just a few minutes. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just nodding and saying stuff. It's okay. It's okay.
All good. All good. So let's talk about some of the other potential shortfalls that we could have on the slate here. Just a few minutes to go into lock. And then don't forget, guys, we're going to be hopping into playback. We're going to watch the games. And while we're on playback, and it's only going to be on playback while we're watching that Bucks Pacers game, Eric and I are also going to talk about the baseball slate. We'll start talking about that over there as well. Who's most likely to ruin you today? From a couple of standpoints. First, which player do you have a lot of exposure to that you're nervous you have a lot of? And then which player are you not getting to a lot of that you're nervous you don't have much of?
I have a ton of Miles Turner, Yusuf Nurkic. I guess center is kind of an interesting one. There's guys that I have a ton of, those two. And then guys that I wish I had more of, Brook Lopez, Rudy Gobert, Zubats, who I have a decent amount, but like, again, we're going to see less necessity to necessarily have him on the floor if you're going to have Gafford out. they're going to have Lively out there, they could go to some smaller ball lineups, kind of what I was alluding to for the Clippers, to try to mix it up from game 2, maybe not play Zubac's 33 minutes. But I think there's a large chance here as well where guys that I'm shorting the most. I mean, it is tough for me to get to a Middleton today with the other options, and Tyrese Halliburton too. I have 0 Tyrese Halliburton. That would be pretty tough. 5% Tyrese Halliburton in my top 20. He's somebody that's going to have a big game at some point, you would think, and he gets Dame and whomever else on the other side of it. I just don't trust that we're going to get the same kind of usage here. I do prefer Pascal Siakam, but I think most people do. So kind of feels a little fishy where Tyrese Halliburton, the price keeps coming down and I still don't get there. So guy that I don't have him feels a little uncomfortable. Guys, I have too much of those centers. I feel like there's going to be something that falls through the cracks there. How about you?
Yeah, so the one that is most likely to ruin me that isn't in my lineups is super easy. Luka's ceiling is obviously incredibly high. He's Luka Doncic. He's the best fantasy producer on the slate. I just ended up going to other players instead because I found it hard to pay up for Luka. But if you told me at the end of the day I get screwed because Luka scores 80 fantasy points, yeah, that would be a totally understandable thing that could end up happening on the slate. You can't play every single pay up option on these slates. So if Luka has a big game, that's probably going to sink me, unless there's also big games from, like Booker or Durant or some of these other Damian Lillard, other pay up options. But yeah, a crazy ceiling game from Luka that could certainly end up killing my lineups. As far as a player I have that I'm potentially nervous about, I would say Patrick Beverley. He's my most rostered player. And I couldn't find a good way to get away from Beverley just because of the lack of value options on the slate. Yeah, Beverley goes out and scores like 18 fantasy points. I'd be like, yeah, I'm a fucking idiot for playing a bunch of Patrick Beverley because he's Patrick Beverley.
Love.
So we are at lock, guys. If you've not done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Jordan, throw the link to Playback into chat. Guys, come join Eric and I in Playback. We're going to be putting on the Bucks Pacers game. And then also we're going to be doing MLB live before lock in here while we watch the game. So come hang out with us, watch the game. And if any news breaks, we'll be covering that as well. We still officially have Daniel Gafford is questionable. Grayson Allen is questionable. Kyle Anderson is questionable. Come check us out in Playback and watch along with us. See you guys over there in a second.